Hello, girls and boys. Welcome to Storytime Fun. We hope you enjoy it.
Today's story is called All Will Be Well, Learning to Trust God's Love, written by Lacey Finn Borgo. Julian walked home listening to the autumn leaves crunch beneath her feet. Julian's Mima was sick, and Julian was worried. "God, please make Mima better," she whispered. Thump! Suddenly, something whacked Julian on the head. "Ouch!" she yelled. Looking up, Julian saw the leaves blazing red, yellow, and orange in the late afternoon sun. "This tree is on fire!" she exclaimed. "Is this what you look like?" she asked God. The wind swirled playfully through the tree limbs and around her body like a tiny tornado rustling her hair. Julian closed her eyes and listened to the windy, wild sounds. "Is this what you sound like?" she asked God. Thump! There was again. Another something smacked her head. "Ouch!" she cried. But then, looking down, she saw gobs of hazelnuts scattered on the ground. Thump! Another. Thump! And another. Julian filled her pockets. "Mima loves these." Julian busted through the door with hazelnut surprise for Mima. "Mima!" she shouted. "Shh!" her mother responded. "Mima's asleep." "I'm not asleep," called Mima from her bedroom. "Come tell me about your day." So Julian galloped into Mima's room. "Look what I found!" Julian unloaded the hazelnuts onto Mima's lap. "They're beautiful!" Mima exclaimed. "Where did you find them?" So Julian told Mima all about her walk, and the wind and the leaves and the trees, and Mima listened. "How was school?" Mima asked. Julian hung her head. It had been a hard day. She was worried about Mima. She was sad that Mima was sick, and sometimes sad looked like mad. Julian raised both fists high in the air. "Sometimes I want to explode." "I love you," was all Mima said as she held Julian's hand. Julian drew close to Mima. "Tell me again about my name. Tell me about Julian of Norwich," begged Julian. So Mima began. "Julian lived long ago, when there were kings and queens and knights and lords and ladies. She lived in a small room attached to the church. She stayed there day and night with her many cats. There was a terrible sickness in the land, and Julia prayed for people to be made well. People would come to her and tell her their worries. She prayed for them and told them how much God loved them. One time, Julian became very sick and almost died. While she was sick, she had a vision. A vision is like a dream, but a dream while you're awake. In her vision, she was holding something about the size of a hazelnut. Mima paused and looked into Julian's eyes. Do you remember what she heard God say? If something as small as a hazelnut is loved by God, then we are loved by God too, answered Julian. That's right, said Mima. We live and we will last because God loves us. Then Mima playfully patted Julian's arms and legs. Are you here? She asked, smiling. Of course you are. Well then, God loves you. The next day, Mima called to Julian before she left for school. Come in and let me look at you. I'm here, declared Julian. Yes, you are, said Mima as she pressed a hazelnut into Julian's hand. And God loves you. That day at school, Julian didn't feel quite so worried about Mima, and she also didn't feel so angry. When her face grew hot and she felt like exploding, she rolled the hazelnut around in her hand and remembered that God loved her. When Julian arrived home from school, she announced, Guess what? Hush, Julian, her mother whispered. Mima's asleep. But Mima heard Julian and called, Come here, Julian. Tell me about your day. And after emptying all her words, Julian said, Mima, I don't want you to die. Does God still love us when we die? Asked Mima. Yes, God loves us forever, Julian answered. Then when you don't see me anymore, well, I will be where God is, Mima said. Because God loves you and God loves me, all will be well, all will be well, everything will be well. Julian of Norwich said that, Julian declared, and Mima was glad she remembered. The next day was an extraordinary day at school. But then Julian saw her mother at the classroom door, with red eyes and a sad face. Julian's mother gathered her up and said, Julian, I'm sorry. Julian knew what that meant. Mima had died. The sadness in Julian's heart swelled up all the way to her throat and flooded her eyes. She felt sadder and angrier than ever. Later, Julian took a walk outside. She walked loudly, stomping her feet. She walked slowly, dragging a stick. She listened to the crunching of the leaves. She looked up at the trees with her arms raised high. Why didn't you make Mima well? She asked God. The wind began to blow and swirl and swoosh. The leaves around Julian. She listened quietly, very quietly, for God's whisper. Thump! Something hit Julian on the head. She reached down and grabbed a handful of hazelnuts. She remembered that God loved her and that God loved Mima. And then she remembered, all will be well, all will be well, everything will be well. That's it for today. We'll see you next time.